Hey everyone, welcome back to the Book Cave with me, Jenny. So today I have a series readathon, and that is going to be The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. And this book came out, I believe it was around 2020. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Okay, actually it says 2021 was when this first book came out. This is a YA fantasy series that is following a 17-year-old girl named Kiva. She has been in the notorious prison called Zalindov for the past 10 years, and she is obviously the prison healer. So I'm not entirely sure, is there magic in this or not? But I do know that there is a rebellion going on. There's some sort of a rebel queen, and she is brought to the prison. Kiva has to keep her alive so that she can go through the trial by ordeal, which is a series of elemental challenges: air, fire, water, and earth. And this is assigned to only the most dangerous criminals. And then we have some other stuff happen, it says, but I'm not going to talk about that yet because spoilers. So I have read the first 8 chapters, which is 81 pages. So far, I'm liking it. The writing is very easy to get into. I do feel like it's also very descriptive. You get a good idea of what the prison looks like. It's not overly described, but it's just enough that it's there and it keeps the pace going. I will say I don't know how I feel about the romance, if that's what it's going to be quite yet. We have a handsome young prisoner show up, and yeah, we kind of know how that usually goes. But for right now, it seems like it should kind of grow organically, I'm hoping. And then where I'm at, we have just now met the Rebel Queen. And yeah, I'm definitely excited to get further into this and see what this series has in store. I haven't heard too much about it. I think I've seen maybe 1 or 2 people here on BookTube read it, or at least start the series. So yeah, I'll be intrigued to see what I think as I get further on. But so far, I am enjoying it. I'm up to chapter 13 in The Prison Healer now, and from this point on, this video will not be spoiler free. So we have just met the Crown Prince Deverick and his sister Marion, and we find out that for whatever reason, Marion seems to want the Rebel Queen to live. Because by this point, Kiva has said, I'll take her place and do these trials, since the Queen is too sick to do it and will obviously just fail right away. And she's been told to not let that happen. So, yeah. It's getting really interesting, and we're getting quite a bit of intrigue here. And I'm definitely excited to see, is the princess part of the rebels? Or is it just what she said that, I like your spirit and would like to see you last a little longer? So, yeah, it's definitely very fast paced as well and very easy to read. And it is, I suppose, kind of YA in a way. but it does also deal with, like, obviously a lot darker themes, being set in a prison and everything. And honestly, like, the characters don't feel too YA, in all honesty. Like, I don't really see any naivete or anything like that. But I guess it's more just the writing style itself, in that it's kind of simpler, is what gives it that YA feel. I finished The Prison Healer, and I do have to say, I started to enjoy it a lot more in the second half. And yeah, I'm just going to go into full spoilers here. So you're probably going to want to click off the video here if you don't want any spoilers. Or, wait until I'm at whatever book you're at. So yeah, we have the elemental trials, and I feel like the trial by air and the trial by water were both, like, very, very just brief, and they weren't really brought that, like, didn't have that much attention brought to them. And yeah, obviously the trial by fire did have a little more, just because of the fact, she's put in the crematorium furnace and everything. Yeah, and that was definitely a scene that was very well written. Like, yeah, just the emotions she felt and everything was really well done. And then we continue to go on with the kind of mystery plot of this stomach illness. And then I do like the fact that we're learning, pardon me, we're learning more and more, like, very quickly at this point. And I do feel like the plot is picking up a good bit, and we do get a good bit of foreshadowing for certain things that happen later on. But I do feel like one particular thing that I'll talk about in a moment was very unexpected. So then once we get to the trial by water, that is when everything kind of really picks up and really gets fast-paced and kind of had me gripped, because that is the point we find out what is causing this stomach sickness. And we learn that it has a lot to do with not a sickness at all, but rather the warden, and he's poisoning people and wants to basically make room for more prisoners. So yeah, that was kind of like a really moment. And then we have another one when we find out Jaren is actually the crown prince. I was not expecting that at all. However, it did not make the romance any better for me. That I still feel like it's just insta-love. Like, I didn't really see anything other than that for them to start to care about each other. And then with the very, very end, I do kind of like how we have Kiva being more torn between should she be loyal to Jaren or loyal to the rebel cause, with the fact that we found out she is the rebel princess. And I feel like this does something that a lot of series don't, in that the whole plot of this book was wrapped up. It was wrapped up very well in just this book. While we do have, obviously, with that last, I guess, about 2 to 3 chapters, is bringing in, obviously, the plot for the next book. and kind of see where that will go. So I'm hoping that continues to hold true. But yeah, this is definitely one of the more interesting YA dystopia series that I've read. I'm about 50 pages into The Gilded Cage, and honestly, this one is very different tonally from book one, I think. This one we have a lot more kind of like lightheartedness and fun. And we actually start out with a celebration that is quite fun to look at. And we actually get to see these characters get to be children as well. So that is interesting. I'm definitely interested to see as well how the character dynamics change and how Akiva changes now that she has met her siblings again. But I did actually just get an email that this is due back in 3 days. So I've got like 400 pages to read in the next 3 days. So hopefully I can get to that and get this back to the library on time. So I am just over, or just under, halfway through The Gilded Cage, and this has continued to be semi-interesting. It is suffering a little bit, in my opinion, from second book syndrome, and there is also some things that were mentioned before about the Queen, and we're not seeing that at all, which I don't mind if it's not true, but why would Dren lie? He wouldn't. So, yeah. Also, with Kiva's magic, there's some things going on that I'm like, okay, what is going on here? And we are starting to get a lot more into the political landscape of not just their kingdom, but the whole continent slash island overall. We do get a pretty good scene with that, and we do learn something that may or may not come into play. I'm thinking it will, because otherwise, why would it be mentioned? And yeah, we are getting some interesting moments, but I feel like overall, parts of it are just a little drawn out. So I'm hoping that that gets better in the second half and everything picks up and we get some answers. I finished The Gilded Cage today, and wow, the ending of this was absolutely insane. I was not expecting that. This wound up being a lot more about family and family dynamics, things like that, than what I thought it would be. And the ending of this was also much more of a cliffhanger than the first book was. While the first book did kind of have a cliffhanger, this one is a much more urgent one. Unfortunately, the Blood Trader is due back to the library, so I'm not going to have time to start it quite yet, which means that I'll have to return it, put it back on hold, wait for it to come back, and then I can complete this trilogy. The only real complaint I had with this book is I felt that in the middle it did kind of drag some, that there were just scenes that hinted at things, but multiple scenes that hinted at the same thing. And like, I just feel like it could have been easily cut down, but it did also read very fast. So there is that. But yes, very excited to continue this when I can. I'm 6 chapters into The Blood Trader, which is obviously the final book in this trilogy. And much like between the first and the second, there is about a month to a month and a half gap from the beginning or the ending of the last book to the beginning of this. And it definitely makes a lot of sense in this one as well, beings, we know what transpired at the very end of that one. And I do like as well that we are now learning about yet another place in this world. And we do also have Cressida, I think it is. 1 second, I will find her name. Cresta, not Cresta, Cresta. I was not expecting to see her again, and I was not expecting to have her change at all. But we are learning a little bit about her, and I am enjoying that as well. So far, this seems like it's going to have a lot more action than the first two books. I feel like the first two books, while they did have action near the end, there was a lot of setup in the beginning, and then there was a lot of political, and then there was a lot of action. Whereas this one kind of just starts out with the action, and we're slowly getting a little bit of political in there. And yeah, just really interesting. I'm really enjoying all our characters. I will say Kiva is still somewhat a little bit dense. Not really dense, but just like she seems to have forgotten some of her survival instincts from the first book between the second one and this one. Like, it's just a few little parts, but they just really stand out to me. But yeah, like I said, I am definitely enjoying it. Only about, I'm 66 pages in, like I said, at chapter 6. And I will definitely be getting further into this today. And yeah, I will let you all know when I have more. I'm about halfway through The Blood Trader now, and I'm enjoying the world building in this. We do get to see a lot more of the world. I know I said before that we got to see one of the other countries. We're now kind of going through more countries and learning a little bit about them. Not necessarily a whole lot, but a little bit. And I do enjoy kind of having the map so that I can look and see like where they're at on the continent. And yeah, so far this has really been a travel book other than like the little bit of political that was at the beginning. And I do feel like a lot of this middle part is going to be traveling, which doesn't bother me too much because we do have a lot of things to work through with our characters, with everything that's happened in the last two books. And I feel like that travel time will be a really good way to kind of study their relationships, how they've changed, and kind of what everything means. I am hoping I can finish this today because obviously it's a library book and it is actually due back very soon. And I do feel like that's not impossible. It's only about 200 pages left, and this one is reading a little bit faster than the other ones, I do think. So I finished The Blood Trader, and I have to say, I did enjoy this series overall. We did learn a lot about our characters, and we got to learn a lot about the overall world in this book. Although I do wish we had learned a little bit more about certain things. But, you know, we do only have so much in this book. And I just feel like the ending was really well done. It did conclude everything, but then also left a good bit open going into the future. And I just felt like it was, although a very dark series, very hopeful overall. And yeah, I do really recommend this if you like YA fantasy and if you like it to be unique, because I do feel like this was a pretty unique series in that, it starts out in a prison and like the magic, I feel like, is relatively unique. It's not necessarily like groundbreaking, but the way it's used is very unique. That's everything I have for you today. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe. That way you'll be notified every time I post a new video, and check out all my links. And I will see you next time in the book cave.